What I wanted to first talk to you about tonight is a problem. And the problem is that a lot of Muslims, increasingly in recent times, they get into debates with non-Muslims unnecessarily about the miracle of the Quran. About the fact that the Quran it can only be from Allah, and they want to convey that to a non-Muslim, and this is almost the first thing they talk to with a non-Muslim about. Like, let me tell you about Islam, and the first thing I'm going to tell you is look at how awesome the Quran is, and let me tell you how many miracles it has in it, and I can prove it to you, and all of that. And it becomes like a back and forth debate. And this is a very problematic approach for many reasons, and one of them is, in debates, nobody ever goes into a debate to listen to the other side, or to be interested in what the other has to say. When you go into a debate, you go into it to crush your opponent. So even if you are defeated, you are going to be thinking, how do I come back tomorrow and beat him back up? How do I get back up with a response? How do I come up with a counter? You don't listen to something that defeats an argument and say, okay, you know what, I agree, I accept what you have to say. There's a pride that comes inside the human being. It takes over, and it doesn't let you accept in a debate forum. Whether it's the truth or falsehood doesn't even matter. And the idea of starting the message of Islam with somebody, introducing them to the message of Islam, with a conversation which will naturally turn into a debate is a problem. That's not a good approach to take with anybody. And certainly this is not the approach of the Quran. Now, a few places in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal issued a challenge, and I think all of you here are familiar with the challenge. You know, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ. If you're in any doubt about what we've sent down, bring a surah like it. But you know that ayah came down in Medina. The ayah came down in Medina. And actually, at the best, in late Meccan revelation. In other words, the Quran did not come down in the beginning, and the Prophet ﷺ went around to people and said, look, if you don't think this is the truth, bring a surah. Bring a surah. It didn't work like that. Da'wah is not you go, you set up a table, and non-Muslims walk by, hey, come here. Bring me a surah. What's a surah? You know, I just came to eat some free pizza. What's the surah business, you know? It's the wrong approach. And what it does is that actually it creates an interest in non-Muslims to want to refute the arguments of the Muslims, to try to constantly undercut the arguments of the Muslims. Here's the second problem, and a more important problem. Allah Azza wa Jal revealed to us this most powerful book, which truly is a miracle. It cannot be from a human being. And I'll talk to you about my personal journey in that conclusion, inshallah ta'ala, in tonight's talk. But before I do, what I think is miraculous about the Quran, or what I studied and I found that this is so incredible, this is so beyond the capability of a human being, is my understanding. That's my understanding. I cannot tell someone this is why the Quran is a miracle, because I'm only talking about my understanding. All I can say is, to the best of what I can appreciate, this is what I love about the Quran. This is what makes it beautiful to me. You may see it and you may not see it. Because my understanding is not the reason that the Quran is a miracle. The Quran is a miracle for reasons beyond my understanding. It is powerful beyond what I can know and what I don't know. It's bigger than me. So if I only associate the miracle of the Quran with my particular understanding, then we're actually limiting the miracle of the Quran. And it can't be limited. We cannot limit it. And if somebody disagrees with is it possible, by the way, is it possible that my understanding is incorrect? Is that possible? Sure. So if somebody proves me wrong, they should not think that they proved the Quran wrong. There's a difference between those two things. There's a difference between them. So I can share with you the best of my understanding and still maintain that my understanding may be limited, but the word of Allah is perfect. We have to maintain the distinction between those two things. Now, having given you that brief introduction, I want to talk to you now about why should we appreciate the miracle of the Quran anyway? What difference does it make? After all, we're already Muslim. Or I think at least most of the people in the audience today are Muslims. So you're already believers. You already believe in the word of Allah, and it's not from a human being. This is not the authorship of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are the words of Allah. Then what's the point? Why even discuss this point? Why even discuss this issue? I have two things to share with you on this subject. The first of them is a conversation about one of the people in the Quran, one of the dialogues of a person in the Quran who, when we think about Iman, we think about him, Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Ibrahim alayhi salam said to Allah, Ya Allah, show me how do you bring life to the dead? How do you do that? Now, Allah Azza wa Jal asked him a very strange question in response, and a very reasonable one. He said, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ? So you don't already have Iman? You didn't believe yet? You didn't have Iman? Because why would somebody ask, show me how, until they already have Iman? But the response of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Ibrahim, you can think about the Iman of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Where am I, and where are you, and where is the Iman of Ibrahim alayhi salam? And he says to Allah, Bala, of course, why not? No, I have Iman. وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. Because I just want to satisfy my heart. I want to put my heart at ease. In other words, when a Muslim, even a prophet, a messenger, sees a miracle of Allah, when they see that, there's something that happens to their heart. They become tranquil. The heart becomes at ease. And this is a very powerful thing that Allah told us in this ayah. وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. The Muslim should study the miracle of the Quran and appreciate the miracle of the Quran, because then the heart, not the mind, you see? We think that we're studying the miracle to satisfy our minds. Now we're intellectually convinced that it's a miracle. But the ayah is about our hearts. It's a spiritual reality. When you appreciate the miracle of the Quran, you will appreciate the greatness of Allah. The grandeur you have of Allah. The next time you say Allahu Akbar, it's going to feel different. It's not going to feel the same way. You know, I tell my children the story of Musa alayhi salam and the water parted. It's an amazing story. They're walking through the water. And I can make them try to imagine it. But it will never be the same as somebody who was actually walking through and looking on both sides, and he's seeing Tawd Azim. He's seeing like mountains raised of water on both sides. That person's Iman is something else right then. Because they are living and they're tasting, they're experiencing a miracle. So the Quran, we want to taste its miracle. We want to at least appreciate something about it that we haven't before. Now I'll talk to you about something personal, about myself, and then we'll get into the examples that I wanted to share with you. I have 5 or 6 examples. I hope I get through all of them with you tonight, inshallah. I feel like I'm leashed. Can somebody help me turn? Oh, this is on. Look at that. I can walk around. Awesome. Okay. I was tapping this the whole time the nasheed thing was going on. Okay, so now, personally myself, the first thing that made me curious about the Quran was its message. Like, what is Allah saying? Right? What is Allah's advice to me? What is Allah's guidance for me? So the first aspect of my relationship and your relationship with the Quran, I would argue, is its message. Its message. This is what made me curious about learning the Arabic language. This curiosity made me listen to lectures about the Quran, read tafsir. I got into this study because I was curious about the message itself. But then, this is a few years ago, this is maybe 2003. I came across a lecture series in the Arabic language, and my Arabic was not very strong at the time. So I just started listening to Arabic lectures, and I would understand maybe 30%. But I still forced myself to listen and just kind of take notes and stuff. So I listened to Tariq Suwaidan's I'jaz al-Quran in Arabic. May Allah reward him. So he did about a 16, 17-hour series on the miracle of the Quran. And this was the first time I heard a topic, the miracle of the Quran. And when I listened to it and I started taking notes, again, I only understood about what? How much? About 30%. But when I took notes, I was hearing things I've never heard before in my life. I've never ever come across some of this stuff in my life, ever. And I was blown away that this subject even existed. Because until then, the only thing that interested me about the Quran was its what? message, but now there was another conversation. What about its miracle? What about its miracle? And actually the word miracle is not used in the Quran. The word miracle is not used in the Quran. We use the Arabic phraseology, the terms we use are i'jazul Quran. I'jazul Quran. You know, i'jaz in Arabic comes from ajaz. And ajaz in Arabic is to be on your knees, to not be able to get up. When someone says ana ajiz in Arabic, that means I'm incapable. I am incapable. So ana mustati', ana qadir, I'm capable, ana ajiz, I'm incapable. Now i'jaz means something that makes something else incapable. Like if two people are wrestling each other and one guy steps on the other one's face and he can't get up now, the one who's standing on top of the other guy, he's mu'jiz. He's mu'jiz. And the guy that got stepped on, he can't even get up now, he's mu'jaz. That's the Arabic of it. Okay? I'll give you another example of i'jaz. If you're crossing the street, hopefully not you, somebody's crossing the street, there's a truck coming by. They didn't notice the truck. They didn't notice the truck. And then look for a second and the truck is like 1 foot away from you. Your eyes go wide open. You realize you got nowhere to go. That second before you turn into like pancake, that 1 second you experienced i'jaz. You were overpowered. You were completely overpowered. The discussion in Islamic history is the Qur'an's power to overpower its opponents. The Qur'an is so powerful that somebody who tries to oppose it, somebody who tries to attack it, somebody who tries to come up with something else like it, is always made incapable. They keep falling on their knees. It brings its enemies to its knees, to their knees. That is the idea of i'jaz. That's not the same as miracle. The word miracle is used in strange ways in English. It's not the same. But since it's a popular term, I even chose it in the title. Because if I said the Qur'an's power to bring its opponents to its knees, it would have been a long title. And by the time, I don't know how you fit that on a flyer. You have to go all around the page or something. I don't know. Right? So I didn't choose that title. But now, for me personally, I started studying this subject and I started taking notes. I still remember, I started just kind of taking examples down on what's being talked about and how it's a miracle. In what sense is it a miracle? And sometimes I would study these examples and I would have to stop taking notes. And I would just have to go in a corner and cry. I'd be overwhelmed by what I was reading and what I was researching. And I would say to myself, how come I never knew this? How come I never knew this? Every time I heard about the Qur'an, I heard about it as a message. And I never appreciated it as a miracle, as something that's overpowering. I felt overpowered. I felt like, Ya Rabbi, okay, Ya Allah. I just went and fell into sajda and prayed or like tickled a baby or something. I couldn't study anymore. I had to stop studying because it was overwhelming. It really was. When I put enough of my notes together, I decided to actually turn it into a course. When enough of my notes came together on this subject. I used to call that course Divine Speech. And I taught it in the United States about, I think, 60 or 70 times. All across the United States. And I taught it once in the UK also, in London. And from the 50 times that I taught it in the United States, from what I know, 17 people took Shahada at the program itself. These are non-Muslims that came, college, university students, professors, working professionals, friends of Muslims that came and attended, and by the end of it, you know, they just took Shahada. SubhanAllah. It's not because of me, because I know this stuff is super powerful. And before I share some examples with you, I'll share one more story with you. I was in Los Angeles. The first time I taught Divine Speech was in Los Angeles. And this mother, you know, I used to teach on a Friday night, and all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. That's what I used to do. And when I was done teaching on Sunday, this mother came up to me and she was crying. And I said, what did I say? Sorry. And she said, no, I want to talk to you for a second about my son. And I said, okay, tell me about your son. She says, well, you know, when you had the program on Friday night, he didn't want to come, my 17-year-old son. He wasn't interested. And I said, that's understandable. When I was 17, I wasn't interested in Islamic lectures either. And she goes, well, no, he had Lakers tickets, front row seats. You know who the Lakers are? If you don't know who the Lakers are, make istighfar right now. Okay, so but anyway, So he has front row seats to the Lakers, and his mother says, go attend an Islamic lecture with me. And you know what? Before I go on, I have to tell you, I don't know how many mothers have come up to me, or how many youth have come up to me, my mother makes me listen to your lectures. And I just said, I'm sorry, bro, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. There's so many young people who have a grudge against me because they're mothers. Listen to Brother Awad. Oh, like, I hate that guy. He's ruined my life. But anyway, so she says, I could not convince him. Finally, I told him, I will get you playoff tickets. Just come tonight. And playoff tickets are expensive. He said, fine, it's a deal. I'll come. So he came. And he actually stayed Friday. He came Saturday on his own and Sunday on his own. And when they were leaving, Friday night, when they were going back home, and this kid just missed the LA game. He's talking to his mother, he says, Mom, today was actually the first time I believed that the Quran is not from human beings, it's from Allah. It can't be from a human being. Today was the first time. This was a Muslim child talking to a Muslim mother, and they didn't convert to Islam, they're born and raised Muslims, right? Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because this subject is important for us today. A lot of us have Islam, as I was mentioning in the khutbah at the university, a lot of our Islam is given to us by our parents, by the society in which we live, but we didn't feel it ourselves. We didn't taste it ourselves. We don't know why. We're told it's a miracle, but we don't know why. When I was younger, I heard hundreds of times the Quran is a miracle. The Quran is perfect. Its Arabic is amazing. The poets could not come up with anything to respond to You heard this before or no? You heard this, huh? And I used to say, wow. That's all. The Quran is so awesome. Why is it awesome? Because its Arabic is awesome. Oh wow. But I don't know Arabic. Well, too bad for you. It's still awesome. Okay. I was like, I guess it's until you know Arabic, you can't see it. You know, it's like telling someone something behind this glass door. It's frosted glass. It's stained glass. You can't see through it. Behind this door is something amazing. Can I see it? No. You? Look at you. Go learn Arabic first, then you can see it. That's the attitude. But the problem with that approach is, do you think most people are going to learn Arabic for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, even 1 year, even 6 months, just so they can see the miracle of the Quran? Most people won't do that. We have to present this message in the language of the people. And we have to stop saying, until you learn Arabic, too bad for you. No. And personally, I do believe that the true miracle, to taste the miracle of Allah in this book, you have to have something of the Arabic language, but I made an obligation on myself. Whatever of it I can explain in English, I will. Whatever I can, if I can't make you taste 100%, even if I can make you taste like 2%, it's better than nothing. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And the more I studied this subject, wallahi, the more I said, man, people need to know this stuff. People need to appreciate what Allah's book is, what it says. Now me personally, I am a student of language. I'm interested in linguistics, I'm interested in grammar and nuances, literature, literary analysis. So I studied the Quran from a language perspective. And so tonight what I'm going to share with you is something unique about the Quran from the language perspective. From its language. Not from the scientific perspective, not from the